is what it is.
All right, it looks like there's a few more people waiting in the waiting room, so I'm going to be sure to admit everyone and we will go ahead and get started. I believe everyone's lines should be muted. I'm going to go ahead and welcome you all. My name is Karen Moldovan. I'm the Policy Director at Good Business Colorado. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the first in a webinar series we're doing on what's next for business. And we thought we would start with an issue that is, we know, on the forefront of everybody's mind of how to navigate this issues around access to capital. What are the grants and loans that are really meant to be targeted to small businesses right now? And how to be sure that you're kind of keeping an eye out for what could be predatory. This is just such a challenging time, and we know that folks can feel a little bit desperate. So we're hoping this webinar series that our participants walk away with some real tools, some allies, some partners to really help you navigate this maze and to make the most out of access to capital and resources during this pretty stressful time. So thank you for being here. And as you know, we've got two more webinars coming up in the series, but tonight we're joined by four experts on access to capital and lending experts, all based in Denver, just for this discussion on how they can be resources to you. I'm really thrilled to be joined by the Center for Community Wealth Building, Mcas Resource Center, Mile High Connects, and Rocky Mountain Employee Ownership Center for co-sponsoring this. So we got started a little bit late, so I'm just going to go ahead and kick it over to our first presenter. And I also should have mentioned Small Business Majority. So we are thrilled to have Lindsay Vigoda join us, and she is going to start this discussion.
Hey all, my name is Lindsay Vigoda. I'm the Colorado Outreach Manager for Small Business Majority, and a little bit about us is we're a national business advocacy and education nonprofit. We focus on small businesses, and we have an office right here in Colorado. And we do this really focusing on small business by doing three different things. And we do research, talking to small business owners, as well as a lot of statistics, seeing what the lay of the land is and what the issues that small business owners are facing every day. And we also do educational events. We've had our hands full in partnership with a lot of the folks here, including Good Business Colorado, since the beginning of COVID, to get educational resources and tools inside small business hands of Colorado to make sure they know what the heck's happening. And the last thing we do is advocacy. The small business community would not be in existence without small business voices. So we really find ways to elevate the small business voices and get small business owners to talk about the things that matter most to them. So that is Small Business Majority in a nutshell, but today I'm here to talk about predatory lending. Predatory lending is a huge problem that small businesses are facing today. And a big reason is because since the recession, there's been a steady decline in small business banking. This has only become worse in COVID times, and we expect the numbers to skyrocket, unfortunately. And because of the steady decline of small business bank lending, alternative lenders have stepped in to fill the void, but they're doing it through high-cost short-term loans. They're largely unregulated, but I'll talk to you about that in just a second. Daniela, next slide. Awesome. So before I talk about the different types of online lenders, I'm going to talk about a checklist for small business owners. And this is a checklist that you absolutely should feel comfortable asking your lender when seeking funds for your business. And the questions are, what is the interest rates? And that includes other applicable rates like AIR and APR. The next question is, are there any upfront fees? And if so, where do they go? Next is, what are the payment amounts and frequencies? This is so very important because if you have a loan for, let's say, $50,000, you should be able to know that every day, every month, every week, you're going to be paying X amount. This means that you have the means to financially plan for your business. Next is, what is the prepayment penalties? Next, what is the full cost of a loan over its lifetime? So that same $50,000 loan, Are you going to pay $55,000 with interest or $75,000? Those are two very different numbers, and you absolutely should know that information going into the borrowing process. Next is, if you are refinancing that loan, are fees being added to the existing principal? Is the lender imposing deadlines for accepting the loan offer? Predatory lenders often say, hey, you have 24 hours or whatever that time frame is to sign this deal, or it goes away forever. This is a tactic used to make sure and ensure folks are not reading the contract and falling into some predatory traps. And lastly, if you're going through a broker, are they fully disclosing their fees? Next slide. So, like I said, there's new breed of alternative online lenders that are innovating small business lending, and they're expanding new options for entrepreneurs. This is really exciting for some folks because they have simple and streamlined application processes, and they have quick approval rates. They use technology and new sources of social data to assess risk. So they might not look into your credit score or your collateral, but they may use different types of data. However, online lending right now is largely unregulated, which means they have higher interest rates than banks typically. Not all online lenders are equal, and some ask very high rates. So I'm going to talk about 3 different alternative online lenders right now and the differences. But I would say when using online lending, proceed with caution and really understand what you're getting yourself into. Next slide. So the first online lender I'm going to talk to you about is online marketplace lenders. This is a peer-to-peer interaction, and they connect small businesses with institutional or individual investors. They often act like traditional bank loans where they have fixed, multi-year stated APRs. Online marketplace lenders focus on transparency and pricing above all, and they really focus on transparency in the whole process. Next slide. The next type of online lender I'm going to talk to you about is online cash flow lenders. Online cash flow lenders generally offer short-term loans, typically for working capital. Short-term means 6 to 12 months, but they have high interest rates, and that's anywhere from 20 to over 50%. Again, they have that non-traditional underwriting, and they don't necessarily look at your credit score, but they use different types of social data. The thing with online cash flow lenders is loans are made by daily deductions of a fixed amount or a percentage of your sale, rather than citing an interest rates. This means they require access to your business bank account or your payment system. Because of these daily deductions, they're not transparent in their interest rates, and they mask extremely predatory practices. They have very opaque pricing, and again, those interest rates could go from 20 to over 50%. Next slide. The last type of online lending I'm going to talk to you about is merchant cash advance, known as MCAs. MCAs provide cash upfront in exchange for a portion of your future sales. So the provider or the borrower takes or the lender takes a percentage of your credit card and debit card sales daily until the loan plus a premium is paid back. They're not typically lenders, but credit card payment processors. They are quick and unsecured, and they have a high price. They are small business payday loans. They mask very high interest rates, and again, they have pretty predatory practices. Next slide. So tips for MCAs as well as online cash flow lenders is they often should be last resorts. This is because they have those high interest rates, but be cautious because they use really deceptive and aggressive sales. They use really flashy keywords like fast cash, no credit score, no collateral needed to make sure that they are reaching a target audience. If you do decide to use MCAs or online cash flow lenders, proper cash flow planning is highly recommended. Make sure you know that every single day, X amount of your sales or X amount of money will be towards that loan. And using that checklist that I had at the beginning of this presentation, make sure you carefully review and understand all the payment terms, fees, and penalties before you sign any contracts. Next slide. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is the Small Business Borrowers Bill of Rights. This is a coalition of advocates and lenders alike that have small business interests in mind. And they are a coalition that is dedicated to responsible business lending. And they believe Small Business Majority is an advocate on this coalition. So we believe that small businesses have the right to transparent pricing and terms, non-abusive products, responsible underwriting, fair treatment of brokers, inclusive credit access, and fair collection practices. To learn more or find a mission-based lender who is dedicated to the end of predatory lending, go to responsiblebusinesslending.org. So that's the end of my presentation. I'm going to pass it over to Gwen from Dream Springs.
And just real quick before Gwen gets started, wanted to remind folks that we're using the chat box for Q&A. I think we have a pretty small group tonight, so we will definitely be able to get to everyone's questions. So if you have any questions for Lindsay or any of our presenters, feel free to put them in the chat box as we go along.
Cool. Thanks, Lindsay. Thanks, Karen. My name is Gwen Bonilla. I work for a nonprofit lending institution called Dream Spring, and I work out of our Colorado office, but we serve a region around this part of the U.S. We've been a small business lender for 20 years and always working with borrowers that don't qualify at a bank. So typically that means startups and borrowers who don't have that top credit that the banks are requiring for business loans. Definitely marched through, I think, everybody's plans out the window in 2020. So what we were planning on doing with 2020, with our lending program in 2020, shifted enormously when the economy started to shut down and things got really risky. So we held back on our normal lending program, and when the Paycheck Protection Program loans became available through the SBA, we became a provider for PPP loans, and that's pretty much like mostly what we worked on all summer. There were a few lenders that were still doing some commercial real estate loans or, you know, a few straggler deals, but I would say 99% of our team was just PPP all the time. It was really exciting because we ended up expanding our lending program and doing loans outside of our normal 5-state region. So we started lending in, doing PPP loans in Washington State and Kansas and Nebraska and places that we'd never been before. So that was pretty cool. I think our end total was we did about 2,245 PPP loans. And the vast majority of those were between New Mexico and Colorado, which is 2 of our big states. So now things are, you know, life goes on. We have to figure out how are we going to continue to serve our market and what loans can we still make responsibly given the environment that we're in. So, you know, PPP is no longer an option. We can't keep making PPP loans at least until or unless Congress decides to change the laws. So we are, we're starting this month, we've been making secured loans and unsecured loans to existing businesses. We will consider loans to startups like we have in the past, but we're going to require an SBA guarantee for those loans. And commercial real estate has always been on our list of funding options, but that's not the majority of what we're doing. So it's typically, yeah, we're doing small business loans, and our terms are going to be like what Lindsay was talking about. Not, we're not doing short-term loans. We do loans that are over 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and the secured loans mean that you have to have collateral to secure it, like a car or equipment or real estate, and typically that'll bring down the risk for us and that'll bring down the interest rate on the loan. So the unsecured loans are more risky and they dictate a higher price from a lending perspective. I think that's a pretty good overview of what DreamSpring is doing right now. Just as a last note, if you've been hearing about the Energize Colorado Gap Fund, there's I don't know the exact number of institutions, but there's a lot of institutions, nonprofits, and community banks that are processing those applications for grants. And we're a processor for the Colorado Gap Fund grants and probably some loans as well later on, but the grants are the first piece of the process. So Yeah, I'll leave it at that. And sorry, I did see a question pop up there. Yeah, I'm happy to answer questions now if you guys want to throw something out there. Otherwise, I'll pass it over to Jeremiah. We can catch up later.
We will have some time at the end for Q&A with all of our panelists. So you can put them in the chat box now or wait till the end. Either way, we will get to them.
All right, I'll pass the mic to Jeremiah. I'm guessing he's ready, and then we'll let the questions build up.
Thanks, Gwen. My name's Jeremiah, and I work for SEDS Finance. Basically, Community Enterprise Development Services is the long name. But we're similar to Gwen and DreamSpring in that we're a mission-driven small business lender. And so what that means is we're not a bank. And so we can be a little more flexible with our terms and, not have as many requirements as a bank. Work with startups, like Gwen said, whereas a bank is looking for existing financials and things like that. And we are much smaller. We're Denver based. Our office is in Aurora, but we focus on the Denver metro area, and our really primary target clientele is people that can't access traditional financing. So we specialize in minority-owned businesses, immigrants and refugees, women-owned business. We have a program for formerly incarcerated individuals. And we also offer Islamic compliant financing for those immigrants and refugees, which is basically loans, but Islamic compliant debt. So we really specialize in providing those services to clients who can't access traditional financing. And we offer loans up to $50,000. So we're really focusing on the micro loans. We don't go any higher than $50,000 at very reasonable rates. And our process is pretty thorough and relationship based. So where, a bank is looking for credit scores and financials, we are really working with you to build a relationship and understand you and your business and do a little bit of the characters lending, we call it. And we also provide technical assistance. So if your small business needs marketing help or finance or bookkeeping support or financial projections, anything like that along the lines of supporting building or improving your small business, we offer those kind of side support services. As far as what we've been doing with COVID in this kind of new environment, we are a SBA lender, Small Business Administration lender, so we've been working through the CARES Act to provide payment relief on our existing clients that the Small Business Administration has offered. We have our own COVID-related resilience loan product that is strictly for, COVID-related. In the beginning, it was people trying to get a hold of financing for PPE, or sorry, not PPE, PPE, the personal protective equipment, or kind of making the transition to online or something like that. So we have a very specific lending product for COVID related financing. We've been working with the city of Aurora to administer a grant and lending program that offers grants, a combination of grants and loans up to $50,000. We just finished a round one of that, which was $500,000 worth of grants and loans to Aurora-based small businesses. And we're just starting to plan for round two of that. So that's been a really great program to provide COVID-related relief. And then we are, as Gwen mentioned there, DreamSpring is a part of the Colorado Gap Fund. We're also part of the Colorado Gap Fund, which offers up to $35,000 of grants and loans for COVID-related relief. So you can Google that and apply there, and we're assisting in administering that program. And then we weren't a PPP lender, but what we did was we were basically a referral agency. So we would take the PPP program and the EIDL, the SBA, emergency loan programs sometimes require, or they do require financial statements and documents to support your application. And some of our borrowers, especially our target market, don't necessarily have those financial records quite in order. So what we did was we would provide that technical assistance to create those financial statements and then refer you to a PPP lender like DreamSpring or Colorado Lending Source or someone. So yeah, we offer, basically to kind of wrap up, we offer small business lending. We've been doing grant and loan lending programs, various programs for COVID relief. And I guess I will leave that there, and happy to answer any questions at the end of everybody's presentation in the discussion, and pass it on to Rachel at Colorado Lending Source, and who also does some Kiva lending as well.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Excited to be here today. I'm just going to share my screen just to show you a couple slides. So can you see my screen looking good? Okay. So I'm here representing Colorado Lending Source. We are our bread and butter, if you will, are SBA 504 loans. And throughout the pandemic, those numbers have been much higher than anticipated. We've been doing a lot of 504 loans. We've still been processing 7A loans and the SBA Community Advantage program. So as well as we've been running our Colorado Main Street loan program. And this is a character-based loan where we're looking more at character and capacity rather than credit and collateral. And then some new lending efforts. We did help with a lot of PPP loans. Very, very crazy time. We did a lot of direct lending emergency loan programs. So we reallocated funds from our Main Street loan program in order to work with, we partnered with several different municipalities, including the Castle Rock Community Loan Program, City of Fort Collins Loan Program, Women-Owned Business Loan Program, Rural Colorado Loan Program, and Eastern Colorado Loan Program, as well as a Trinidad and Aspen Loan Program. Those funds were from $5,000 up to $25,000, with interest rates that vary from 0% to 3%. There are still some remaining funds there. So if you want more information, please see our website. We have a unique loan application based on where your business is located. And so similar to DreamSpring and SEDS, we also have been helping process these Energize Colorado funds. So there's been an overwhelming response there. As you might know, Colorado Lending Source took about 23% of all of the applications. So we have been very busy scoring those. Those who are awarded grants or loan through that program will know in early October. And I understand that the second round will go from October 5th through the 19th, if anyone's interested. And so what I personally have been spending most of my time doing is managing our Kiva Hub. So in March, we launched a Kiva Hub. And Kiva is an international organization that started in 2005, really working mostly in developing countries. And in 2011, started offering loans in the United States. And just 2019, they rolled out a hub model where Kiva will partner with a nonprofit and create a hub. And so I am the capital access manager, and my job is to educate people about Kiva as an option. And if you are a entrepreneur or business owner that's interested, I can help you throughout the borrower process. So Kiva has been a great success. Kiva offers loans up to $15,000. There are always 0% interest with no fees. And because of COVID, they're offering a 6-month grace period. The main thing to say about Kiva is it is a crowd-funded loan. So the crowdfunding is a bit different than, say, a GoFundMe or Kickstarter like that. It's actually a bit higher success rate, but it's broken down into a bit more manageable process for the borrower. So you apply for a Kiva application online, and I'm here to help with the application. And Kiva's review team will give you an approval to fundraise. And so your crowdfunding begins, and it's broken down into private and public. And so the idea is if you're able to get a specific number, anywhere from about 5 to 30 individuals in your network, so family, friends, or anyone in your personal or professional network, to lend your campaign $25 each, then, and if you meet that goal of the specific number of people, you advance to the public round. So this is Kiva's way of assessing your risk as a borrower. It's really leaning into this idea of community collateral. So Kiva feels if you're serious that you can get some people in your network involved, you'll move on to public, and Kiva will publish your campaign on their website, public to Kiva's global community of lenders. And Kiva's community of lenders is made up of individuals, but also many banks and corporations that have set up these lending funds that will help you fund the rest of your loan. So it's less daunting than it might seem. And so it's very exciting that this year, 100% of Kiva borrowers that have worked with a hub, like Colorado Lending Source, 100% of those that met their private goal went on to meet their public goal. So that's super exciting. So since launching, we've been able to help 47 businesses obtain 0% interest loans from Kiva. So if anyone is interested in Kiva, please let me know. And every Monday morning at 9:30, I host a just information session in case anyone's interested. It is a great way to get low cost financing. So yeah, I think that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much to all of our presenters. We've had a few great questions pop in the chat box. So I just want to encourage folks to continue asking your questions. We definitely have some time to get through them. The first question is mostly directed to Jeremiah, but then the rest of them are for everyone. And we'd love to hear all the different panelists' opinions. But Jeremiah, you mentioned SEDS provides some coaching services, assistance with financials. So if you're a small business that doesn't work with an accountant, what are some tips and tricks you can give to make sure that they are loan ready?
You know, it's definitely keeping track of records, and it's just going through the effort of recording your sales and expenses for the month, for the quarter, and then you know for the year. You know, when you're talking about the PPP program, they require those financial statements in your application. So you know, a lot of the borrowers that we worked with, we were having to go back through, you know, kind of and recreate these from scratch. So it's really just kind of, I would say, being diligent and proactive. And once you get into the habit, you know, it's not fun. Nobody likes keeping financial records, and that's why it's like probably the number one thing we come across, especially for really small micro businesses, is because you know people are consumed in their day-to-day. Their day-to-day business operations. They don't want to go back and maintain the books. So if you're a small business and you don't have a bookkeeper, you know, it's really just being proactive and diligent about it. Make some time, whether it's, you know, every Friday or every Monday, maybe, you know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday is your heavy day, or your you know, most trafficked day. So find a day where you have some downtime. But it's really just kind of being proactive and consistent about it and maintaining those records. There's several easy templates that you can find online as far as, organizing your information. Whether it's Excel, you don't need to have a information management system or, necessarily some sort of pay for computer system to do it. You can do it on Excel. You can do it on paper. It's really just kind of being diligent about tracking those things on a consistent basis, which is the hardest part because, it's not that fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So for all of our lenders on this kind of similar topic, are there different financial statements that you all accept, and what should folks have ready sort of in that category? Let's see, Gwen, do you want to go first? I can tell you're thinking it through.
Well, I would say, so we do care a lot about getting financial statements, just like the P&L and the balance sheet. Those are critical documents, especially for the larger loans. And right now we want to see, I'm trying to think of, because we've changed our policies, so I'm trying to think of exactly how to explain this. So I know that we want to work with businesses that are seeing an opportunity and are doing okay. If you need a Band-Aid or you're struggling and you need like the grant funds or the relief kind of funds, that we might be able to do an SBA guaranteed loan, but the secured loans and the unsecured loans we're doing are going to be for businesses that see growth right now.
Jeremiah or Rachel, any other comments about what you're looking for in terms of financial statements?
Yeah, I would definitely say that for us, the profit and loss, the income statement really shows kind of the sustainability or, the consistency of your business. We can go back and look and see basically, what we're focused on is how affordable this loan payment is to you, and that's really what we're getting down to with the profit and loss statement, and really making sure that this that you're able to repay this loan, and that's what the bottom line of that P&L statement really shows. And the more consistent it is, that the bottom line is, the more safe or the more we can assess the repayment rate or the repayability of that. So that's definitely first and foremost. And then the balance sheet kind of shows what assets are there to either secure the loan or what the solid checking account would be there to if there's any sort of downtime or unforeseen expenses that you are able to absorb that. So there's, like Gwen said, those are the two primary we're looking at.
Thank you.
I would say for us, for newer businesses, if you're less than 2 years old, we like to ask for monthly cash flow projections. It's something very simple, so we can see how much cash is coming in the business each month, how much cash is coming out, and back to like seeing how comfortable you'll be making a monthly payment, and making sure you're thinking through all the maybe seasonality and expenses or and your income as well. And if you need some help making these monthly cash flow projections, I know the SBDC score and perhaps Mcas has great resources to help with that.
Awesome, thank you all. So another question, we heard about the different type of loans you all offer, and there can be some different options depending on geography and size of business and needs. But there was a question, is there any sort of one-stop shop that somebody might turn to, or is it really talking with different lenders to see what could be good options?
I will just go ahead and say, shop around, go to your first to your bank, your community bank, see what they have to offer. They might have the lowest rate. I know that if someone comes to us at Colorado Lending Source and we're unable to help them, we refer them to SADS, DreamSpring, Colorado Enterprise Fund. So I feel very fortunate that in this community, I think Gwen and Jeremiah would agree that we're, and Lindsay, that we're quite collaborative. And so The lifting tide rises all boats, and I think that we'll think of each other. If we can't do it, we'll send it to another nonprofit lender's way, but definitely encourage people to explore and shop around.
Yeah, you still have to be your own best advocate for financing options, because we might talk to you for 5 or 10 minutes, but that doesn't mean we know the whole story, and there might be other things going on that you need to kind of know what you need, why you need it. So I like to refer to the Small Business Development Center offices a lot for getting that counseling and coaching on figuring out what type of financing are you looking for. Do you need a line of credit to buy a piece of equipment? No. It's understanding the tool and the type of financing. Lindsay had mentioned MCAs as merchant cash advances, and those are not always the best source of financing for certain types of projects that business owners are thinking about. So you really want to make sure that you're finding what you need and understand what the options are. But we're happy to answer questions about the costs of financing and helping you figure, there's a lot of cool tools out in the marketplace online that you can match the terms that somebody's giving you with the terms that somebody else is giving you, and really find out apples to apples what are you really paying for that type of financing, because it can get really confusing when you're talking about the merchant cash advances and the daily amounts that you're paying. It's hard to know, is that more expensive or is it cheaper than just doing this other thing? And sometimes fast capital is necessary and it's worth paying for it, but if you don't have to, then the slower you can get your money, the less you're going to pay for it. So those are just some tips around do your best to learn the environment as much as you can, and ask as many questions as you possibly need to understand it. And if you have an accountant or a bookkeeper or a financial person around, pick their brain or put them to work, because they might have some of the answers and you don't have to do it all for yourself. But if you are kind of one-man band working your business and you have to do it all, then that's the unfortunate. You become an expert in marketing and you become an expert in finance and financial tools and all that stuff.
And piggybacking off of Gwen, use your community. Even if you are a one-person band, use resources such as any of the people on this panel, myself included. We also, Small Business Majority has a really incredible platform called Venturize, and it really goes through the different type of business lending out there. It's VENTURIZE. I hope I spelled that right. .org, or go to Small Business Majority. Thank you. Yes, that. That was incredible, whoever did that. So go to that. It also does the lay of the land when it comes to predatory lending, as well as all these incredible mission-based lenders. They really talk about that. But use your community. I have seen so many small business owners do this in isolation, and that is when we get into really sticky territories. So I can't stress what Gwen said enough. Use your community.
And if our presenters, are able to share your contact information in the chat box, you're each really amazing resources. So thank you for making yourself accessible for this dialogue. So another question specific to eligibility for the Energize Colorado GAP funding. Is a business still eligible for GAP fund if they have already received a PPP loan or some sort of City of Denver COVID focused grant, like one of the neighborhood small business emergency relief grants? Who would like to take that one?
Yes. But you might not be the highest on the list. So that the scoring model is, it's meant to avoid having just the first people to apply get the money. It's about finding the people that need it the most. And so there's a lot of ways and scoring methods to that. And one of the ways of trying to find people that need it the most are folks that didn't have access to those other sources of capital. So if somebody wasn't eligible for PPP or EIDL or grants, then they hopefully could be eligible for the GAP fund and they'll be raised up the notch a little bit. But there's so many other criteria. So that's not the one and only defining reason why you may or may not get one. And I don't think it's going to be super transparent in the fact, like, why did some businesses get it and others don't, because it's so personal. It's like, it's about, are you in a rural community? Are you a women-owned business, minority-owned business? Do you support the community? Like, there's a lot of questions. So just try. Like, it doesn't hurt anything to just submit an application, fill out a few documents, and then if you're in, you're in. You can't deny that up to $15,000 in grant funds is like an awesome deal. And you know, if you're looking for more than that, the loans attached are also really, really great deals. So I would say definitely some of the best financing you can find out there right now. You should totally apply. And they think they closed the application period just for this first round, but it's going to reopen and it's going to be going for a few months. So don't lose hope as well that if you don't get it after the first round announcements are made, you know, it'll be going until the end of the year.
Great, thank you. So where would you recommend that folks go to if they need a really small loan or grant, say like $1,000? What's available?
Go to Kiva.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say Kiva. I mean, I know I'm a bit biased and I know that crowdfunding isn't for everyone, but you can get a $1,000 loan at 1 to 15 for 0% interest, no fees. It's just that you will have to ask some people, you know, can you lend my business $25 through PayPal? Which, you know, that's a hard ask, but it's also a bit manageable, and everyone who lends to your campaign will get paid back. So I would say I would vote for that.
That's great.
We at SEDS focus on microloans. So we do loans from $1,000 to $50,000. You might, we don't have 0% interest like Kiva does. But it is a traditional loan product. So you don't have to go through the crowdfunding route. Although, you know, you may get better terms with the crowdfunding route. So we do microloans like that.
Great, thank you. So it seems like a lot of the loans and grants right now are specifically for businesses that were up and running and can demonstrate a COVID impact. What would you say is a good place to start if you're still in the new business planning stages, but need access to capital?
SEDS does loans for startups, and then even startups are on a kind of spectrum of, you know, we get clients that kind of walk in and say like, you know, I'm really good at baking cakes. I think I want to start a business, to someone who has actually like gone down the road and done a lot of research and put together a business plan. So depending on where you are in that spectrum, you might be ready to apply, or we might refer you or walk you through some training. Another great resource is not on the panel, but Rocky Mountain Microfinance Institute is another Denver-based organization that does a 10-week boot camp specifically targeted at startups. And they have a small lending program at the end of that boot camp that you're eligible for. So that's really great for people who are just getting off the ground. And then if you're someone like that has put a lot of thought and research into it and has a really concrete business plan and put together financial projections, then we do look at those and can finance startups. So anywhere on that startup spectrum, we can refer you to, you know, someone that can put you through a boot camp and really flesh out these things. Or if you already have, we can start to look at whether you might be finance eligible.
And I'm going to plug again, definitely all the people on the panel, good place to start. And that Venturized platform I talked about, we do have a lot of great examples of business plans and financial records to look at to really jumpstart that business if you were looking to get funding right now. So venturize.org.
Awesome, thank you. And I saw that we also put in the comments the website for Rocky Mountain Microfinance Institute as well. Any other comments on new business development, startup funding?
Go to the SBDC and go to SCORE to help you with, to really get a good business plan.
And the Commons on Champa. Sorry.
Yeah, Commons on Champa. And Colorado Lending Source, we have like a pre-application process for if you're interested in any of our programs, if you're less than 2 years old, if your business is less than 2 years old, we will ask for business plan, cash flow projections, and assumptions, where we provide education on giving you feedback on what we think. And I would say right now, a big thing to think about is how will your business not just survive, but thrive in COVID? Because unfortunately, you know, life is going to be different for the near future, and that's going to affect your business model. You have to think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of segueing on that point, that we know the environment is really challenging right now. Say a business does receive a loan, but unfortunately they have to cease operations due to pandemic losses. What happens to these different types of loans, and what should folks sort of know and consider if they think that is a possibility?
It really depends on the loan product itself. Like Gwen mentioned earlier, you know, whether it's secured or unsecured, like all of SEDS loans are secured by some asset. So that would mean that the asset would be taken back to cover the loan. With the kind of emergency SBA lending, the PPP and EIDL loans, I don't believe those are secured, and maybe Gwen could talk about those a little bit more. But it really depends on the loan product and kind of the lending institution you're working with, and kind of what happens with that and the loan agreement itself.
Any other thoughts with that, Gwen?
PPP is unsecured, but it's not open anymore, so it's not an option. But I'm pretty sure EIDL is also unsecured. I could be wrong about that though, because we don't do EIDL loans. It's directly with the SBA. And then the Colorado Gap Fund is unsecured, those loans. Like that's pretty rare. It's like unsecured loans at decent rates are incredibly hard to come by. So it's a really unique time if you can find something that's unsecured with a reasonable rate. I would expect that in just normal times, having collateral is to be expected for most loans.
And just so folks know, you might hear of another loan becoming made available in the state of Colorado through the state treasurer's office, the Climber Fund. So I'm not sure if anybody has any details. It hasn't launched yet. It's not open. So I don't know the details of that, but I can say that that is a legitimate loan option to at least explore the terms and conditions with it. A different question. Do any of these sources offer funding support to worker-owned cooperatives? So kind of taking us on a different track.
Jamie's favorite question. And I wish I had like a clear answer for her, because it's so complicated. Like I would like to say that we can, but I just don't know how. I think from a financial institution perspective, it's like upending the application process and the whole underwriting process. So we'd have to like build out a whole new product just for that. I would say, yeah, maybe. Rachel, do you know or yeah, Jeremiah, do you guys do employee-owned businesses?
I'm gonna echo that. Like maybe. So we haven't actually done one. So.
See, I could imagine that it would be so sorry. A thought occurred to me that we lend to nonprofits, and we don't require that nonprofits have any personal guarantors because there are no owners of a nonprofit. So I imagine we would apply that same logic to employee-owned businesses, where it's like, hey, if the business by itself can pay the loan and there's collateral, then yeah, we probably don't need any personal guarantors, which would make those employee-owned businesses possible. But if the business isn't strong enough, if the cash flow is not strong enough, we're going to say, okay, who else do you have that can personally guarantee the loan to provide that credit history or that outside cash flow?
And Gwen, since you mentioned nonprofits, there is a question about, are there specific loan programs that you would recommend for nonprofits?
Nonprofits are eligible for the Colorado Gap Fund. if you know any that haven't already applied, because I think everybody in the state probably knows about the GAP fund at this point. But yeah, it may not be clear that nonprofits are eligible to apply for it. We lend to nonprofits, but we can't use the SBA program because the SBA is specific to small businesses. What else? Doesn't the Denver Foundation have a working capital loan fund for nonprofits up to $50,000?
Yeah, they do. I'm not too familiar with it, but they do. SEDS does not lend to nonprofits, but
if you don't mind me chiming in, I wanted to address that co-op question that Colorado Lending Source we can do loans to employee-owned co-ops through our Main Street program, and even our 504 program we can as well. And then, yeah, I would say nonprofits are pretty successful on Kiva because if they have a social mission, it's very attractive on the platform.
That makes sense. So you all, we've gotten through a lot of questions. So just want to let our participants know if there's anything else that you want to ask or feel like we could circle back on and spend a little bit more time with. I'm sure all the panelists are happy to. If I might have missed a question, feel free to copy and paste so we can get to it again. I do want to let folks know that we are going to have 2 additional sessions in this series. The next one is going to be October 22nd. And we are going to be really diving into this alternative ownership models. So that I think it's a timely conversation to have, and looking at how to best structure your businesses during this time. And then on November 18th, we know that there are folks who do have questions about closing their business. So we want to be able to have some open dialogue about what to be thinking through if you are looking at closing your business, and how can you do that in the most painless way possible, knowing it's always a really difficult decision. We do have another question that popped up, and I think this is a great question. What are some of the more common reasons that you see loans that are denied? So I think that would be a great question for each of the panelists, whether that's just sort of criteria or actual errors in the application. What are some of the things that pop up? Who wants to start first? Go ahead. You look like you're ready to go. And then maybe Jeremiah and Rachel.
All right, tag me in. Oh gosh, I would say the most common reasons would be the lack of prepared documentation. So if you don't have a financial statement available already, it's hard to move forward without some of the information that we need to make a decision. And then cash flow is probably the biggest issue. Is, people have big dreams, which is great. That's why we love entrepreneurs, because we can live vicariously through their courage. But as a cash flow based lender, that means that we make a decision responsibly, believing that you can afford the payments. And in order to prove that to ourselves, we have to see it in your financial documents, in your bank statements, your financial statements, your tax returns. So we often will decline loans if we say, if somebody can't afford the payments. But that's where this group of lenders will get creative and say, okay, well, do you have a partner? Do you have a family member that would be willing to co-sign with you? Or is there another way for us to make this work? Do you have other support? And then maybe the cash flow does work. And so I know, I'll let Rachel speak to it, but projections are really hard for us to make a loan on. We don't like to look at a financial projection and kind of bank on it, saying like, oh yeah, we think you're totally going to hit that revenue mark by 6 months or 1 year. That's really scary. That's playing a dangerous game of kind of believing like an investor, like, oh, let's just see where this goes. And you're taking a huge risk. It's a gamble. But there's responsible ways to do lending based on projections, and that's where I'll let Rachel take over, because they know how to do that and we don't.
Sure. And that's mainly used for businesses less than 2 years old. I definitely think we care about the balance sheet and P&L for more businesses that have been operating for more than 2 years. But for our projections, to your point, the assumptions are what keep it grounded. So we want to know if you are projecting to make $10,000 in your first month, but what are the assumptions behind that? Okay, I own a coffee shop, and I think that because I think 100 customers are going to come in the first week, and the average ticket price will be $350. So we just want, that's what we're looking for, and the assumptions behind the projections. So yeah, I'll let you go, Jeremiah.
No, both of those things. I mean, from a lender's perspective, what you have to, I mean, at the most general way to think about it is what the lender is trying to understand is how secure they are in feeling about getting repaid. So that's, you know, the number one reason for being declined would be that the lender doesn't feel like they're secured in being repaid. So that comes down to cash flow and how, like, can you demonstrate that through the financial statements? Can you demonstrate that you have enough bottom line to cover this this loan payment? And then to the projection side, SEDS does do startups and works with projections, and it goes back to the same thing. We don't want to hear I'm going to make $10,000 a month. We want to hear why. Why do you believe that? The assumptions behind it, like Rachel said. And then secondarily, you know, the collateral behind it always helps, in having another co-signer. We can get creative with, you know, it feels a little bit riskier. We can, you know, put another co-signer on there, increase the collateral, things like that. But, you know, the number one fundamental issue is how secure does a lender feel about getting repaid?
And if I can add one thing, I hear Mike O'Donnell, our executive director, my boss, someone I admire very much. I hear him in my head right now. And he always says something that every successful business owner has, or two things, is a good management team. So if you get sick one day, or, you know, there's an emergency, that you have a solid team, if not just a couple people that are your leadership team. And secondly, a mentor. So I've seen that on other loan applications, like, do you have a mentor? Yes or no. So back to Lindsay's original point, like, you don't have to do this alone. There are tons of resources. And even if, you know, you think that if you're an expert in your industry, but perhaps, you know, you're not the best at preparing financial statements, you can find a mentor to help you with that, or whatnot.
Yeah, that's a great point. So what would be some of your recommendations for how you go about finding a mentor? Any organizations, any folks on this line, this call, but we'd love to hear your thoughts on how you find somebody who has that expertise and time.
I mean, I keep saying the SBDC and SCORE and Mcas, but, you know, I know right now it's a little strange because of COVID. Networking is a bit different than it typically is, but like attending these webinars and just reaching out to people, LinkedIn, utilizing these tools. And I guess it takes I'm sure some courage to put yourself out there and have that hard ask. I know that can be difficult, but I do think that most people are happy to help if you're asking for help. And I don't know if you have something to say, Gwen, or anyone else, about how to find a mentor. I think it is a little bit harder right now because of what we're going through.
Yeah.
Continue to attend these webinars, for example.
Go for it, Jeremiah.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say that SCORE offers, you know, business consultation and mentorship, and so does the SBDC, a couple others, the Rocky Mountain Microfinance Institute that we mentioned earlier, that has the 10-week boot camp. Their methodology is, you know, a combination of classes and mentors assigned to you. So that's a really good program. And then another one that hasn't been mentioned is Mile High United Way. Also has a recently started but very strong business mentorship program. They the business mentorship program there is relatively new, but just because they're, you know, United Way, they have a lot of deep connections. So the Mile High United Way Business Center is also a very great resource for mentorship.
Awesome. And Gwen did put in the chat box the website for Denver SCORE as another resource.
I think something that I reflect on, because I've tried to manage a variety of mentorship connecting programs where it's like, hey, let's try to match up this person that wants a mentor with these people that want to be mentors. And it seems to be one of the hardest things in the world of what we do. So, and not just in our world, but I think mentorship programs in general are just like so valuable, and yet they're the hardest things to just, you know, build or organize. So like so much of it happens organically. It's like Rachel said, making connections, being very, I would say, proactive. You have to be courageous. You have to ask for the help. You have to be willing to say, hey, look, I see you're doing something that I want to do. Can you teach me how you do it? And you have to be willing to put yourself out there and just try. That's my takeaway. Oh, and I was curious, Rachel, is Colorado Lending Source still doing the Ice House program?
Yes, we just finished it. It was our first ever virtual Ice House program. We'll have it again next year. I did the class and it was great. And in case anyone's interested,
awesome. Not really a mentorship program, but it changes the way you think about business. Yeah,
it's if anyone's interested, we'll do it again next year. And it teaches the mindset of an entrepreneur. So things about like internal locus of control. But yes, Gwen, very true. They do talk about having to be courageous and proactive. And I think that with good spirits, most people are flattered when you come to them and you're like, you could definitely teach me something. I think most people are pretty flattered to be approached with something like that.
Awesome. And I see
like
there's
women's chamber in your local chambers. Those are great resources too. Sorry, Karen.
No, absolutely. I was just going to say there's a lot of other suggestions coming up in the chat box. So hopefully folks have seen some of those resources. So this was a great discussion. If any of the panelists have any kind of final comments that you wanted to say, things that you meant to say earlier, I think we have a couple minutes, but I'm just really thankful that we had this dialogue. I'm really thankful that we have these great resources here in Colorado. So I want folks to know we did record this webinar, so we will make it available to participants, or you could share it with somebody who may have missed it. Again, we do have 2 more sessions coming up, one on alternative ownership models, and the third on considerations for closing your business. And those are on October 22nd and November 18th. And we would just love to stay in touch. So please reach out to any of the panelists. Any final comments from anybody?
KK, your dog's very cute.
I did enjoy seeing one of the dogs in the screens. That's the best part of Zoom, honestly, or getting the pet shots.
Shout out to Kiva. Before I worked for SEDS, I worked for Kiva on the international side. So they're a great organization and take advantage of that 0% interest business loan.
Thanks, Jeremiah. I didn't know that. I'll have to talk to you about that another time. But
yeah.
Thanks everyone for coming. I feel very privileged to be here with you all.
It's a great community. So thank you all. Have a good evening.